Hey everyone, my name is Drew Johnson. Here with this Mavs Step Back podcast. I am filling in for my colleague Dalton Trigg today. He is unfortunately under the weather with the flu. So, you know, well wishes to him. Hopefully he gets better soon. But today we have a special guest from the Believe podcast company, I guess is what you would refer to it as. His name is Bruce Bernstein. He's a four-time Emmy-winning ESPN veteran and co-host of the 48 Minutes podcast. So one of the first questions, and you can go as in depth on this as you want to. How was your experience at ESPN as an employee over 3 decades, and how would you suspect that things have changed now in relation to the way things were back whenever you were working there?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry that Dalton can't be with us. Dalton, look, get better soon, man. I know, Drew's got me standing in for a minute, but he needs his boy back. So feel better soon. ESPN, man, I'll tell you what. I was there for over 30 years. I started there in February of 1982. I was there till just about the tail end of 2017. Overseeing, NBA studio content, producing Sports Center, overseeing NBA coverage before we got the contract, NBA finals for 20 plus years, overseeing Sports Center. ESPN, as I like to say, is pretty much responsible for every blessing in my adult life.
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful for the time that I had there. And it was great. I mean, it was never an easy place to work. And, there were certainly, pluses and minuses, but for me to feel anything other than blessed to have been a part of that family, it is a family, Drew. I mean, because so many of us, we stay in touch with people we haven't seen in 30 years, but when we hit them up on Facebook or whatever, it's like yesterday. It's a very, very remarkable company. But as far as the way things are now versus the way they were then, I haven't been there now for about the last almost 8 years. In the very beginning, it wasn't the ESPN that you know it as now. It was kind of like the little engine that could. We were like the minor leaguers. We would look at ABC, CBS, NBC. Those were the big guys, and it took a while, but eventually the timing was right. People loved sports. We were the first to do the whole all sports thing. We had some remarkable people that we worked with. We had some remarkable leadership, some great, management, getting properties and doing Sports Center. I mean, Sports Center was really my thing. I totaled it up one time. I probably did somewhere around 4,000 shows altogether during the time that I was there. And many of them were 3-hour shows, so it wasn't like 4,000 hours, it was 4,000 shows.
Wow.
And so what it has turned into, obviously, is a source of great pride for those of us who would consider ourselves kind of builders in the early days. But it's a more corporate environment now. Things are different. It used to be more of a, little family. It's still a family, but it's not quite the same. But
Yeah.
obviously, unbelievable company, and they do incredible coverage.
No, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't familiar with the history behind it. All I remember is ESPN growing up. I remember waking up early in the morning for school. We'd have Sports Center on. And then whenever we'd get home, Sports Center would be on. So, and that's all I watched. So, I owe a lot of the programming that I watched as a kid to you, I suppose, because I mean, that was literally my whole childhood, and it was Dalton's whole childhood too. I'll speak for him there. I mean, it's really immeasurable the impact that Sports Center had on us as kids. I mean, we'd quote it all the time. So,
well, yeah, I mean, it really was such a unique thing. I mean, it's a thing. It's this behemoth. But you know what? They're constantly reinventing themselves, Drew. Now they're doing this whole streaming package deal because a lot of people, particularly those in your age range, are not buying the big expensive cable packages. They're doing more of a streaming thing. They're not paying $300 a month to Comcast or Xfinity or whomever. they're paying, YouTube TV here, Netflix here, Peacock here, and, hopefully, ESPN there.
Well, we have Hulu. We have the Hulu Disney Plus special in our household, so we get ESPN along with all that. But you're absolutely right. The times have changed, and you got to change with the times if you want to be successful. So, which that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier with in regards to women's college basketball and Gino Auriemma. Kind of a wild turn there, but So the next question I want to ask you: what are your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks offseason? Obviously, drafting Cooper Flagg was a jolt of life that this organization needed desperately after the infamous Luka Doncic trade. What are your thoughts just overall?
Well, the Luka trade was just so traumatic for your fans and for your franchise and for your whole Dallas hoop culture because, sometimes you can see a young guy play like one season, all right, and he's going to the Hall of Fame someday. The only two guys this century that I can say that about were LeBron James. I knew after watching about a half of his first season, this guy's a Hall of Famer, and Luka Doncic, kind of the same deal. Just remarkable. You could just see right away. So to lose somebody like that, particularly to see the way it was done, where the general manager kind of, I don't think, got nearly the value that he should have gotten for him, which was very detrimental to the franchise. I mean, look,
Yep.
Anthony Davis is a Hall of Famer. He's going to the Hall of Fame. No question about it. He's still a really good player. But you could have gotten so much more for him than you did. Now, I would say the basketball gods must love Nico Harrison because for them to reward that questionable move with the incredible luck to get Cooper Flagg in the draft, it's like, he must just be, he must have a direct, line to the hoop god, whomever or wherever they may exist. So that to me is like, if Luka leads the Lakers to the championship, which I do not think he will, okay, that's going to open up a lot of wounds for you guys all over again. You're going to be like, wait a minute, But and I don't see the Lakers winning it. So Flagg, if he's the player that we think he is, he gives the team a new generational star and a remarkable young guy. He's not even 19 yet. He's there's no, I'm not saying he's one of those guys that, he's going to the Hall of Fame. I need to see a little bit more before I decide that. But everything he's done so far. Look what he did last summer when he was playing against the Olympic guys, and he was basically the man out there, and he was 17 that year. So It's like you're in good shape there. Now, as far as a prognosis for your team this year, look, the Kyrie injury is going to prevent you from winning 50 games. You're not going to win 50 regular season games. But if he were healthy with the guys you have, I could see this being a 50-win team. So that said, I'm imagining this lineup, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Klay Thompson, Kyrie, Cooper Flagg maybe coming off the bench to start, but eventually being in the starting lineup, I believe, because I think he'll challenge PJ for some of those starter minutes, at the small forward. So maybe we will see all of them later in the season. And then whatever their regular season record is at that point, they're going to be better than that. They're going to be playing their peak basketball at the right time of year. Kyrie, if he's a good healer, should have kind of fresh legs, right? If he's only playing a couple months, he should be fresh. And to have your point guard, who is the initiator of everything on your offense, be fresh at that time of year, he's going to create some great looks for some of these other guys. And I think, what you see in December is not what you're going to be seeing in late March. You're going to be much better in late March.
Right. And even if Kyrie was healthy, that statement still holds true. The team that you are, in November and December is not what you're going to be, come playoff time. You always grow as a team. People rise up, people fall off. It's just a constant, everything's in motion. But to go back to your statement about Nico having a direct line to the basketball gods, man, the chain of events that took place at that point, like throughout last season, has a lot of people thinking, conspiracy theory. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know that I necessarily ascribe to that. I'd really like to not, just because, that opens the door for so many other things. But it's just weird how all that worked out. And, what we traded Luka away for, it just didn't make any sense. To me, at least, it didn't make any sense. I don't understand why if we were going to get rid of him, why didn't we shop him around? OKC, I'm pretty sure, came out and straight up said they would have given up tons of draft capital. Why didn't we go get it?
OKC is the best managed franchise in the entire NBA, as far as I'm concerned. They've got like 19 first-round draft picks over the next 6 or 7 years. They could have given Dallas everything they wanted and still had plenty left over to do other things with, But, and it's not like they traded him outside of the conference. I mean, they traded him to another Western Conference team. So whether it's the Lakers or whether it's OKC, you're still going to be playing him 4 times in the regular season. Had they traded him out of the conference, they could have, I don't know if they could have gotten what OKC would have given them, but the whole thing just seemed like it was done. And I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, Drew, because I think sometimes people just do things and they have their reasons. They're not always good reasons, but you don't make a move like that without discussing it with somebody, and somebody above your pay grade must have said, okay, go ahead and do that. Whether that's the new owners. I mean, it doesn't sound like it was Mark Cuban, because Mark kind of bashed the whole thing. So I don't know. I mean, look, if somehow, I don't see any scenario where I'm going to say, wow, it turns out that's going to be a great deal for Dallas. I just don't see it, because even when AD, who's now like 30 or 31 years old, he misses 20 games every year, sometimes more, so you just hope, I'm knocking on wood here. You just hope that he gets through the season healthy, because if he does, then they're going to be really good, and it will look good this year. But in 2 years, will it still look good? I guess if Cooper Flagg becomes the basketball god, I suppose it will work out.
I hope so. But I think that's a huge if, especially the Anthony Davis part. I think that's a huge if, just because he struggles to stay healthy. He's notorious for that. So, I don't understand the reasoning behind it all. I'm not overly willing to fall into conspiracy theorism, but I have to say that trade, compounded with us somehow magically getting the number 1 pick with 1% odds, it's all very strange. And they say it's back to stranger than fiction, and I get that, but it's just all very weird.
There's no way I will ever believe that the league conspired on Dallas's behalf to get them Cooper Flagg as a result of whatever happened before. If I live to be 100, I'll never believe that. I never believed in any of them. I never believed, because you heard these things for years about the draft lottery. Oh, Patrick Ewing, when he came out, they made the Knicks envelope colder than the other ones. So when they reached in, they knew which one. Oh, we're going to feel around. And here's the cold one. Oh, look, it's the Knicks.
That's crazy.
That happened.
I've never heard that
happen.
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
So building off of this, you already mentioned Kyrie Irving, as a key re-signing. They also re-signed Daniel Gafford, who would be tradable this season, given his contract ramifications, as well as PJ Washington, who is not tradable this season, thank God. And also signing D'Angelo Russell, who, I know he's classified as a point guard. I'm not certain that that's his best position. I think he's better off ball as, a scoring option. But what were your thoughts on some of these signings?
D'Angelo Russell is always an X factor. He can heat up and make you go, oh, man. Or he can make some plays that make you shake your head and go, oh, man. Yeah, I mean, that's how he is. I'm concerned a little bit about the playmaking in their backcourt until Kyrie gets back there. I mean, Clay and D'Angelo Russell can both score, but are they going to make plays for other people? I mean, Russell can do that. Clay at this point is kind of just out there to shoot threes, or a stationary 3-point shooter. It's tailed off in recent years, but it's still very respectable. I mean, he still shoots a really good percentage on threes. But with Russell, he can shoot you into a game and he can shoot you out of a game. PJ to me is a very interesting case here because we know he grew up in the area, Dallas area guy. That's always nice to be able to play in front of the home fans. And while he did miss 25 games last season with that ankle, he did put up solid numbers, almost 15 and 8 with 38% shooting from downtown. I mean, that's good numbers. But
Yeah.
as good as he is, Flag may already be better. We're going to see soon. The Mavs recently gave PJ that 4-year, $90 million deal. And while the length of that deal does make it look like he'll be a cornerstone of the franchise, the new contract really only requires him to play one season in Dallas before he can be traded. So Flag's development this year may be a big factor for him as the season winds down or reaches its conclusion and his future with the team is evaluated. Because if it turns out that Cooper Flag is like already better than PJ, PJ will have value on the trade market. I mean, he's a young guy, good two-way player. He's nice. A lot of teams, would like him. And at $22-23 million a year, he's not overpriced in today's NBA market. So we'll see what happens. It's a nice issue. It's a nice thing for Cooper too, because he's not going to have to come right out there and be like a savior of this team. He's going to just be one of the guys on this team. Eventually, he might be the guy, but he doesn't have to bust out of the gate as the guy. And so we'll see. Practicing against a PJ Washington will probably help him develop. And yeah, I think I like PJ, but like I said, if Cooper Flag is everything we think he's going to be, PJ may be about to play his final season in Dallas, and then they're going to get something. Hopefully, Nico Harrison won't make a trade in the middle of the night and get crap for him. Maybe he'll get something for him in that deal.
Man, so you think that PJ's fate or PJ's future in Dallas is directly tied to how Flag does this year?
I think there's obviously other factors involved, but they do kind of play the same position. Okay.
Kinda, yeah.
So when you've got a guy that is going to be your second stringer, and I'm projecting PJ to eventually play behind Cooper Flag, that's a lot of money to pay a guy who's, getting, not the majority of the minutes at that position. And if you think about other areas you need to improve, you can look at certain things and say, well, okay, a lot of teams would like PJ, who has what we need where we can make the numbers work and see what we can do. So again, you hate to treat a guy like that, especially if he's a guy that you're, have a affection for. And again, because he is a local guy from Dallas, I'm sure a lot of the fan base would be concerned if they felt he wasn't being treated well by the team, because he's one of you. He's one of you guys, he's one of your guys. So, but it's a business, Drew. And, if they're not trying to improve the team, they're not doing their jobs.
That's true. That's very true. I don't know necessarily that they can't coexist. I think that there are some scenarios where you could play them together, very specific scenarios, matchups. The issue with the Mavs right now is that we just are so thin as far as perimeter is concerned, especially in the point guard position, as you mentioned earlier. And I was really hoping we would have, that resolved, or at least, at least make some progress towards it. Because right now, I mean, who are we going to start at point guard right now? D'Angelo Russell? I hope not. Brandon Williams has shown some signs of, being able to carry the load, but I don't know if he's really your long-term or even short-term answer.
How about Jaden Hardy? Has he got any potential there?
No.
Okay.
Jaden Hardy can't dribble.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's someone that I would actually like to see us move on from. I think that he has trade value,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that's dwindling.
Yeah.
Just because, he's a smaller guard that can't really handle the ball and isn't very good at making decisions.
Think Ryan Nembhard might be ready at some point?
I love Ryan Nembhard. I was very impressed by Ryan Nembhard. But I think Ryan Nembhard is in the same boat as Brandon Williams right now.
Rookie.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I mean, he may come out and shock us, and I hope he does. I think that he has the potential to do so. I thought he was very impressive in Summer League. But, I would have really liked to have seen us address that gaping hole in our roster, because what we have right now is we have a lot of front court players and not a lot of backcourt options, not a lot of good ones.
One of the guys, I wouldn't exactly call him, a starting point guard candidate or even a guard candidate, but I really like Najee Marshall. I think he's
Oh,
a really nice player. He gives you some toughness on the wing. He averaged a career high last year, like 13-5. And after Luka checked out after Christmas, before he got traded, but he never came back, Najee returned from that suspension, in January, and he went on a really nice run that pretty much lasted the rest of the season. I mean, in March, he was a beast. If you look at his numbers in March, he averaged almost 20 points, over 7 rebounds, 54% from the floor. I mean, there's a guy, he's one of those Xavier guys, You know how
yeah.
some colleges have like tough-minded guys that seem to come out and they always seem to have like a warrior mentality? Najee Marshall, I think, is one of those guys. I really like him.
He played for Xavier when Cronin was there, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, that explains everything because Cronin
Yeah.
is about as hardcore as it gets. I love Marshall. I do. I just don't know that he's a point guard. I think
No,
that
he's not. He's not. But guys have to be almost positionless now
yes,
sometimes so they have to be able to kind of do more than their position. And you're right. He's not a point guard, but he's a useful piece. I mean, I
oh
think
yeah.
he's a winning player.
No, that's one guy I do not wish to see traded ever. I like Najee a lot. And I agree with you. I think his versatility is, very apparent. It was very apparent last year. Um, I like him a lot. I don't want to trade him. So
Keep him. Keep him. Drew
yeah,
is giving Najee his endorsement. You are going nowhere, Najee.
if I have anything to do with it, which I don't, So moving on, you
You
kind of
mentioned Gafford. You mentioned Gafford. I didn't really address Gafford. You had said
before.
something about him. I think, he just signed like that 1 year deal, so he can be traded, whatever. 14.4 million on the books or whatever it is.
Mhm.
He's productive. I mean, to me, I would be a little bit reluctant to trade Daniel Gafford, if only because what we talked about before. Lively and AD have both had injuries, and Gafford is a relatively inexpensive and quality insurance policy to give them like a third guy who could actually play the five. So to me, they were a minus rebounding team last year. But with if Lively and AD can play together and stay healthy, and you have Gafford, I think they could turn themselves into a plus rebounding team, which will make them, that's an under the radar type of thing. It's not a flashy number, but it gets you extra possessions when you can pound the glass and everything. So,
It wins games.
of
It
course,
if you look at the rebounding total, the team that has the most rebounds is usually the team that wins the game.
that's right.
Really speaking, that and assist to turnover ratio. The team that has the
Mhm.
best assist to turnover ratio, and if they also are winning on the glass, they typically win the game.
No question.
We can talk about boring numbers all we want, but that's typically, the basketball coach coming at me. That's what I used to look at. So, but no, I love Daniel Gafford. I think Gafford is incredibly strong down there, incredibly powerful post player. I think he is very versatile defensively. My main issue right now is that we have too many people that play his position currently.
Hmm.
But like you said, Anthony Davis and Derek Lively are both kind of an injury risk factor. And I think he kind of mitigates that, which is why I'm with you on being hesitant to trade him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Gafford. More so, I'm afraid that Anthony Davis and Derek Lively will be missing time as far as injuries are concerned, which is
Well, look,
why.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you've got a great coach who knows what he's doing. What he
Yeah.
really needs to do, and again, now that, Lively's a young dude. He's like, what, 22, 23,
Mhm.
whatever. He's really young. AD, it's, north of 30. It's up to Jason Kidd, really, to kind of determine, like, you're not playing a back-to-back this week. You're not playing a back-to-back. Tomorrow at practice, you're just going to sit there and watch film. You're not going to be running up. He's got to do the kind of things you need to do to preserve their health and to give them every opportunity to be in the best physical shape they can. And if that means cutting their minutes down a little bit and putting Gafford in, that strengthens your whole team because it
Yep.
gives you a reserve with much more experience playing important minutes. And it's the kind of thing that allows guys to extend their effectiveness and even their careers.
No, I agree with you there. And that's really the most useful part of Daniel Gafford is the fact that you could plug him in a situation where you need to give somebody the night off. Now, another thing that I would be potentially okay with, but it's never going to happen, is trading Anthony Davis. I think that there is still value there to where you could get something back. I think that if you were able to get some young assets for him or even draft picks, it would line up better with your timeline with Cooper Flag. And we've kind of seen examples of, in the past of teams trying to both play, the short-term game of making the playoffs and, potentially vying for a championship and the long-term game of trying to develop younger talent. And it never works. And that's what my main, issue is with having someone like Anthony Davis, who is up in age. And I get Kyrie Irving is also up in age, but you also need players specifically at the point guard position who understand how to run an offense and how to run a system. And I think that's where you kind of get Kyrie Irving off the hook in that scenario. I also think that you can get more of a return for Anthony Davis than you could for Kyrie Irving.
Well, the problem with trading Anthony Davis is there's two really. Number one, he makes a lot of money. So it's hard to find a team that's going to be able to kind of put the numbers together. You'd probably need a third or maybe even a fourth team to do that. And, wherever, he ends up, who's going to take that on? So you say, well, what teams have that kind of assets that could give you what you needed in return for a guy like that? Well, you could look at OKC again. And you could say, well, okay, how about you give us, Chet Holmgren and some draft picks, and now Holmgren's going to line up better with Cooper Flag, let's say, age-wise. But Chet Holmgren's another one who gets hurt all the time. Yeah. So you really want to bring that on? I mean, that's almost like,
Also, I don't know that they do it.
OKC?
I don't know that they would do that. I don't know.
No, I don't think they would either. I mean, if you take a 68-win team that won the championship and you take a guy like that who is really one of your big three. I mean, if I look at all those goofy AT&T commercials that he does with Jalen Williams and SGA, those are awful. Those are embarrassingly bad. But that kind of shows you he is, he's a made man for that franchise, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
So who's gonna give you anything for AD? That's the thing. I mean, who's gonna do it?
Truthfully, we shouldn't have done it. But
you are correct, sir.
But here we are. So moving past that, you mentioned earlier the Mavs right now probably are not a 50-win team. If Kyrie was healthy, maybe, but with the current injury situation, they are not. Where do you currently rank them in the West, considering, our injury issues?
Well, so obviously OKC. I think the number 2 team out West is going to be kind of a toss-up between Houston and Denver. Both of those teams are really loaded. Okay. And with Durant and Houston now, I mean, they're downright scary. I think they're the clear number 2 out West. Although Denver, as long as you've got Joker in there and you've picked up a guy like Cam Johnson and you've got, someone like Bruce Brown returning, Christian Brown, oh, by the way, way underrated player for those guys. They're really good, but they got kind of a rookie coach. So we'll see what happens, there. Sometimes, that's not great. I think I would probably put Minnesota ahead of Dallas, and I would probably put them and the Lakers kind of, neck and neck at that next tier. So, there's a chance they could make, the playoffs without having to go through the play-in. But again, there are teams out there that, like a team like Memphis, they're always better than you think they're going to be, because you say, oh, they traded Desmond Bain and, blah, blah, blah. They got all these draft picks and none of them really going to play this year, but they have a philosophy. They have a kind of a culture, not unlike the Miami Heat, who love to talk about their Heat culture, or, other teams that, say they have the culture. Memphis has a culture, and that's a tough-minded group there. So, they were right there with Dallas last year. They had very similar records, if I remember, although they flamed out. Oh, no, they were better than Dallas. Dallas had, 39 wins last year? Mm-hmm. Memphis had like high 40s, but they flamed out. They got swept in the first round. So I would say with Dallas, I could see them, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there.
Okay. I think that's pretty appropriate. Back to the Rockets. I think the Rockets could be special. I really do. Um, I think the Rockets could be better than Denver. Now, I'm with you with the fact that, Jokic is likely the best player in the NBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I think he is. And you always have a chance whenever you have Jokic. But man, the firepower that the Rockets have now, it's
Look at what they have. I mean,
yeah.
look at what they have. Alpi Şengün, okay,
Oh,
was an
love him.
all-star last year. He's like a poor man's Jokic. He has a
Yes.
similar kind of game. He is starting his 5th NBA season. He's 23 years old, okay? He just kicked butt in Eurobasket, okay? Played great,
Great.
and was an all-star last year. Their biggest negative last year was that they really didn't have a reliable crunch time scorer. Jalen Green could have those games, but Jalen Green was very inconsistent. Kevin Durant, okay, you could not dial up a better crunch time scorer to join a basically young team, okay? Because in addition to, Şengün, you've got Thompson, who's a killer defender and really great athlete. Jabari Smith. Yeah, Jabari Smith, okay? Just waves of guys, that can play. And they have this combo at center now with Şengün, okay? And they have Clint Capella, who's a great, rebounder, shot blocker, third guy, okay? And I'm drawing a blank on their third guy. Steven Adams.
Yes.
Steven Adams is the strongest guy in the NBA, okay? How many easy looks is he going to get for Kevin Durant by just standing there and setting a screen, and nobody's going to get to Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant, to me, is like elevates them so much because not only his own individual skills, and he's a great team defender as well. He's not going to hurt your defense at all, okay?
Yeah.
But I think at this point in his career, all right, he's done everything you can do. There is nothing he has not accomplished. He's been MVP. He's been finals MVP. He's got championship rings. He'll be climbing the all-time scoring list. And I think he really understands that this could be the crowning achievement of his career because he can still be Kevin Durant without having to score the kind of points that he's had to score in the past. We did our bold predictions show on 48 Minutes a few weeks ago, and my bold prediction was that Kevin Durant would have his lowest scoring average since his rookie year. His rookie year, he averaged 20. After that, his next lowest scoring year was 25, okay, which he did. So I say he's going to average between 21 and 24, but when it matters at the end of games, he is going to be an absolute bucket for those guys and elevates them. And I don't think they're going to beat out OKC for best record. I mean, they finished 16 games behind them in the standings last year. They're not going to make up 16 games. But when they gel and their younger guys get more experience and KD stays healthy and these guys, coalesce around, Ime Udoka, by the time the playoffs roll around, if they play Oklahoma City in the playoffs, they got a great chance to beat them.
Yep. I agree. I think they match up very well with OKC, both in terms of just personnel and depth. And they have something that OKC doesn't have in Kevin Durant. There aren't any other Kevin Durants walking around. No. So I know SGA is great. Don't get me wrong. And I know a lot of Dallas people hate him, but SGA is great. But Kevin, there's something special about the Houston Rockets being able to throw all this youth at people. And then at the end of games, they have their guy to go to in Kevin Durant.
And you know what? He will never shoot you out of a game because no matter what, he'll get a good shot or he'll get fouled. He'll go to the foul line. All right. And if he goes to the foul line, what is he, like 88% from the foul line in his career? I mean, he's going to make his free throws, He's not going to do anything stupid out there. He's never going to commit like a dumb foul in a clutch situation. I mean, he's a very bright player, very high hoop IQ, has seen and done everything. I mean, so that's why I say, losing Jalen Green was, and Dylan Brooks, who was, an important guy for those guys. Sometimes I thought his fake tough guy act, he's one of those guys, like if he's on your team, you'll defend some of his BS because, he's your guy. But if he's not on your team, you hate his guts because you
Yeah.
think he's dirty, and I don't know that he's not.
He's got that Draymond Green-esque
Yeah.
kind of,
Living on the
reputation.
edge sometimes.
Yeah, edgy is a good way of putting it. That's a different guy. He's been a different guy since he was at Oregon, though. I mean, he's always been a little on the odd side, but, you know. So, branching off, from the Mavs and the West and all that, let's get into some news that has dropped here recently, and I think you know where I'm going with this, with the Kawhi Leonard Clippers scandal that we were notified about. What are your thoughts on it? And what potential consequences do you see coming down the pipe?
I think that the league has hired this law firm to do an investigation, same law firm that investigated Donald Sterling a few years back and former owner Robert Sarver when he had his scandals with the team. Both of those guys ended up selling their teams. Okay. That ain't happening with Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer, I believe, is probably the NBA league office's favorite owner. Here's why. First of all, he's the most wealthy owner. He's worth like over $150 billion. He built the greatest arena in the league, basically with, money that he had. He pulled some coins out of his sofa when the housekeeper was there, and he had enough money to build an arena he's so rich. Okay.
Yeah.
So he built that arena. Okay. It's a magnificent arena. Okay. They've got the All-Star game coming there. I think this year. If it's not this year, it's next year. Okay. Unless they found something incredibly egregious, he will get nothing more than a slap on the wrist. And look, it may very well be that's all he deserves. I think, it's funny. Mark Cuban has defended him. He said, well, he's too smart to get caught. It's like, well, Ballmer did an interview with Ramona Shelburne on ESPN last week where he said he was conned by the people from Aspiration. So maybe he's too smart to get caught, but he wasn't too smart to get conned. And if it turns out that that's what happened, I will give Ballmer credit for this. He has welcomed the investigation by the league. So, okay, let the thing run its course. But I kind of think that Adam Silver almost tipped his hand a little bit the other day, because when he came out and he said, it's on the league to prove, in other words, he said, it's up to us to prove whatever. Well, we know that, okay? That's our just. And Adam's a lawyer by trade and an honest and honorable guy. I know Adam. I worked with Adam for years behind the scenes on the NBA draft. So I know what kind of guy he is. I think he's a very honorable man, decent, trustworthy. But I think he's going to do whatever he can to give Ballmer the benefit of the doubt. There'll be some kind of token discipline if it turns out that something happened. But I think my partner on the 48 Minutes podcast, Michael Worldby Freer, who's one of our co-hosts, he made an interesting point about this whole thing. He said, what happened with Ballmer, this was kind of like the first sort of thing like this that happened. They're going to really want to make sure that there's not a second thing like this that happened, or if there were, and if there has been, they're going to have to clean that stuff up, okay? Mm-hmm. Because that, I think, is where their priority is going to lie in this whole thing. So look, Ballmer may very well, pay a token fine. They're not kicking him out of the league because, look, what if they kick him out of the league and say, you have to sell the Clippers? He's like, well, I own the arena. So where you want him to play? Oh, you want him to play at the Great Western Forum? I own that too. So I think Steve's got a few cards that he can play here.
No, I agree with you. What's been super interesting to me, though, is the response, the indirect responses by other owners, off the record responses. I saw a report the other day that said, if the NBA doesn't crack down on this, then what's to stop, other teams from finding ways to fund their superstars off the books? And they're absolutely right.
Well, I guess if that happens and you can't control it, then you're just going to basically say, all right, guys, have at it,
Yeah.
But that will always favor the bigger market teams, and that's not right.
No, it's not right.
You don't want to see like, a Milwaukee get screwed because of that, or an Indiana, or Memphis or whatever.
But I do think that you're kind of opening the door for that. If that is the case, I do that you're kind of opening the door for that. And for me, that's a bit concerning. Um,
The integrity of the sport is everything. It's everything. If people think that, I mean, and look, and the way gambling has taken over every aspect of sports fandom and business these days, if you start putting a product out there and people are kind of questioning the legitimacy of certain things or saying, gee, how, do I really want to risk my money on something like this? It's like there's the potential for just the whole business model to really kind of come crashing down in flames in a lot of ways because of the gambling and because, everyone's in bed with the betting houses now. It's
yep.
all intertwined. So the one thing that has to sort of remain pristine for all of this to really stay legitimate with the fans is that the business, the playing field is even, at least as far as the business aspects of things are concerned. Because if they lose that, that's going to be a domino effect, I think, Drew.
Yep. If you lose that, you lose essentially all credibility, I think.
Yep.
So one last question and kind of building off of this. You worked at ESPN for a long time. What was it like when, a big controversial story such as this, for example, would come through? What was it like, covering it and dissecting it and, all the things that go into it?
ESPN was at its absolute best when it came to stories like this because they had so many different reporters, so many different analysts, so many different people with contacts that knew people who knew people. It was absolutely the best. We had a boss who kind of took over Sports Center in the late 1980s. His name was John Walsh. He came in and he was like this journalist with a capital J. He was all about, he was the smartest man I've ever known in the business, Drew. And nobody really knows who he is, but he was just absolutely brilliant. He used to say, he had an expression for this. He would be called it flooding the zone. Okay. He would have, we'd have people, at least even now, okay, people like, Mark Stein, Dallas favorite, guys like Woj, now Shams Charania, Ramona Shelburne, Dave McMenamin, J.A. Adonde, all of these people, analysts, announcers, journalists, and everybody would check in with something, you would all, so between all of these people, you were always able to get the real info one way or another. And people relied on ESPN for that sort of coverage because ESPN always delivered it. And it was one of the things that just absolutely made the place great. They'd have like the Outside the Lines show. They'd do 30-minute shows on this. They would be doing, you'd have somebody like Bob Lee, who I worked with for a million years. He would be anchoring a show. And Bob Lee could read could spend an hour like doing research on the story, and he would know it better than anybody. He would know it A to Z, and he could recite the alphabet backwards, and he would know everything about that story. So ESPN really, that was one of the strengths of the place. It's still really good like that. I'm not sure that the emphasis is as much on that journalism as it used to be, because a lot of what they do now is more, they've changed with the times. I mean, it's a different world now. Everything is clickbaity and, clicks and, GIFs and all this stuff, and look, they've adapted very well to all that, but they're still better at doing stuff like this than anybody else. Cause that's the legacy. It still lives on. It's just that, they now kind of do it almost, by rote, it's so ingrained in the way they do things. By accident, they do a good job on stuff like this and have a lot of integrity, I believe, in the way they report that stuff.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, before we say goodbye, can I get in a shameless plug? Because I really,
go for it.
I know we're all brothers here, right? In the Believe family.
Yeah.
I would hope that some of your viewers and your listeners would check us out on our 48 Minutes podcast. We have a really nice panel of guys. My co-hosts are Russ Geiger. Russ was a video coordinator for 3 different NBA teams, Milwaukee, Phoenix, and New York. He's really good friends with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay. In fact, the only podcast Giannis ever did was ours. Okay. And it's on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to see it. It was really amazing. And our other partner is Michael Worldby Freer. Michael works for a company called Stat Factor. He produces like sophisticated stat info for a lot of the NBA announcer teams around the league. So he's like our numbers guy. He can dive into those numbers, analytics. Ross is a great analyst. I'm kind of like, fan / TV person. But we have an initiative we're working on right now that I think your listeners might really like. It's called Two-A-Days. Between now and October 10th, we're doing 3 short shows a week, 15 shows in all, where we're going to preview all 30 teams, 2 at a time. Okay. 1 East and 1 West. So if you go on, your podcast channel, do 48 minutes, 2-A-Days, I think, you can become a water cooler legend really quick, because if you just listen to these things, get a couple bullet points, talk about your friends' teams, whatever, it would be a lot of fun. And I greatly, greatly appreciate you allowing me to kind of let people know about that. We talk about the Mavericks also a lot on our show, because we talk about every team, but the Mavs are endlessly interesting to us. So we always give them the time of day.
Yeah, we're interesting. Not always in a good way, but we are interesting. So I'll definitely check that out.
Thank you.
I'll add that to my podcast list, and
thank you, Drew. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mavericks Nation. Thank you.
Well, Bruce, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you all for tuning in. Like, rate, subscribe, whatever Dalton tells y'all to do, and but most of all, thank you so much for your time.
Get well soon, Dalton. He needs you back, man. I'm out of here after this. He needs you back.
Yes, I need you back. I need you to keep me on track, because Lord knows I go off of it often. Well, guys, that'll do it for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Bruce. And we'll see you on the next one.